things are not as good as they were then, and that means that they are pretty bad. But on the other hand, there are some hopeful signs. There's no question but that the privatizing of various activities is going forward, and the main thing is that all of the leaders I've talked to, both those that are for President Yeltsin and those who are against him, agree that economic and political reform should go forward. As they do go forward, I think things are going to improve. What I saw, which was different from last time, was that the market was full of goods to sell. What has happened here is that the free market initiative that has been undertaken has raised prices, and that's a big, big problem, the problem of inflation. But it also means that the goods are coming to market. The people can buy things, and that is a very helpful and useful sign. Now we've got to get the prices down. There's no question but that this market had goods in it, fruit and vegetables and meat and things which were too expensive for the average Russian. However, I was able to take my own private poll of others that I met, the leaders, deputies, and so forth from places outside of Moscow. And the encouraging thing is that despite the hard times, despite the inflation, that a majority of the Russian people are still sticking with reforms. There will be no return to communism. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's a great deal of instability. It's going to take some time to get inflation down and to get on the right track. What you say about polls is probably accurate. What I am saying is something quite different. It is that despite the fact that people are fed up with the way things are, fed up with the gridlock, and there is gridlock between the president and the parliament, that on the other hand, in the long term, they don't want to go back to what they had. They don't want to go back to communism. What they want is a different approach, perhaps a little slower approach, a more fair approach to what they're presently doing. It is a very serious challenge. President Yeltsin, as we know when we saw him come to the United States, is a very powerful political personality. The Speaker of the Parliament, with whom I met yesterday, is also a very powerful political personality. However, even though they disagree with each other very strongly, there's no question that both the Speaker and President Yeltsin are for the economic and political reforms. The question is not whether they're for them, but the rate of reform, the means to accomplish them. That's the good side. And what I urged on both of them was get together, get your act together, because the instability is what is keeping American and other private investment out of Russia. Polls would indicate that that's a very iffy proposition. I would say that never underestimate Boris Yeltsin. He's best when he's in a fight. And when I saw him, he was at the top of his game. It's going to be a close call. But my guess at the present time is that he will be able to survive, but it's going to require a major effort on his part to do so. He deserves to stay in power primarily because, Katie, he believes in what we believe. He believes in a non-aggressive foreign policy. He believes in freedom of speech. He believes in free elections. He believes in free markets. He is the most pro-American Russian leader in history. For those reasons, we would like for him to stay in power. As far as his performance is concerned in Russia, that's a very close question. I would say, however, I do not see anybody at the moment who will challenge him effectively on that ground. But it will be a close call. You're certainly right, it's on the back burner. I've been talking to some of your group here in Moscow. Nobody's paying any attention to them. But we have to face the fact that foreign policy rates, as you know from your own polls, only 4% in the polls. When President Clinton had his town meeting last week, you'll recall he got one question in 1 hour on foreign policy, and that was on Bosnia, not Russia. I would say this. What happens to Russia is by far the most important foreign policy issue of this administration or of our time. If the Russian reforms fail, it's going to completely destroy all of the initiatives that President Clinton has at home. Katie, if I had any criticism of President Clinton, I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't make that criticism while traveling abroad. I know you understand that. I would say, however, that on Bosnia, it's a very controversial issue here. As you know, historically, the Russians have always been for the Serbs. My view is that as far as President Clinton is concerned, he's now in power. He's got to determine how far he's going to go to stand up for the Bosnians and, frankly, to punish the Serbs for their aggression. What has to happen here, above everything else, is that Serbia must not gain from this aggression, because it means that in the future it will happen in other parts of the world when ethnic cleansing will be considered to be something that will not be opposed by the United States. If I were in office, first I would try to examine the current proposal for settlement that has been advanced by the team that is out there. I would also, however, insist that as far as that settlement is concerned, it must not be one that is a settlement for the settlement state. It must be one that does not reward aggression. If it rewards aggression, we're going to have more of this in other parts of the world, because believe me, Katie, this isn't the only place where this ethnic cleansing is a real possibility. When I'm traveling abroad, as I said to you earlier, I don't engage in any criticism of our administration. That's improper. As far as this issue is concerned, I think it's very important for President Clinton to bear in mind that we need a strong military. I think he should consider the views of the military. It doesn't mean that he doesn't overrule them on occasion, but it's very important that they be listened to, and I would say we all ought to wait until this 6-month study is made before coming down on any policy in this respect. I said I'm not going to go into that. I have my own private views, but it would not be proper for me to indicate them now while traveling abroad. When I think it's appropriate, I will address the issue.
One senator said that Clinton was using a Ronald Reagan approach to deliver a Jimmy Carter message. What do you think of that assessment?
Well, first, I'm not going to criticize him when I haven't even read the program, and not while I'm traveling abroad, but I will say this. It is very important for a president in his first State of the Union to take on the unpopular positions and make them popular, because as time goes on, his own popularity goes down and he isn't able to accomplish anything. The second point I would make, however, it is very important that if he has tax increases, that he also have spending cuts. If those tax increases are not balanced with spending cuts, it is not going to get approval from this Congress or from the American people. President Clinton, and you know, of course, that I supported President Bush, but President Clinton is an excellent campaigner. He is an excellent speaker. He can move an audience. He can move the nation. I would say that now is the time for him to take on the tough issues, take them on, and then convince people that this is the right thing for them. I would say, however, it must not simply be a case of going with what would appear popular to the masses, and that is to soak the rich. If that's all it is, that isn't going to fly, because soaking the rich means less jobs for the poor. Well, one of the things he campaigned on, as you remember, Katie, was the gridlock would end. He has very substantial majorities in both the House and the Senate, and if he is unable to get his program through, it will be a failed presidency. But let me say this. If I wouldn't criticize Bill Clinton, I certainly wouldn't take on Hillary, because she is a very intelligent, very strong, very effective First Lady. I think it's very appropriate for her to do what she believes is the right thing to do. I go back a few years. I knew Eleanor Roosevelt, other First Ladies over the year. Each was different. I admired and respected all of them. And as far as Hillary Clinton is concerned, with her great abilities, her intelligence, and her strong beliefs, she can be a very effective help to her husband, the president, and I think the American people will like that. For example, if she can come up with a solution on health care, then I say we're all for it, because we certainly need one. The national health care is a scandal. Thank you, and have a good day. Remember, incidentally, it's cold there, but it's a little colder in Moscow.